Couple of very, very standout results in Sky Bet League One, George. None more so than at Oakwell, where Barnsley and Conor Hourihane hosted Luton Town and Jack Wilshere, two quality left-footed midfield operators and now young head coaches. Fair to say one of them had the upper hand here. Barnsley 5, Luton 0.
Yes, the Sky Bet surprise this week. We're mixing this up a little bit where we aren't looking for the biggest price winner of the weekend, but maybe the most surprising result. And Barnsley 5, Luton Town 0 was definitely that. 150 to 1 it was with Sky Bet. I don't think anyone necessarily saw this coming. And yeah, a game between two former mercurial Premier League midfielders, both returning to somewhere they used to call home, certainly in Wilshere's case, but also Hourihane at Barnsley, of course, where he had such a good time early in his playing career. And it was Hourihane who had the best day of the two of them. And this was thanks to, unsurprisingly, Davis Keillor-Dunn, who led the line well, got an assist for the first goal and scored the last goal with a well-taken finish. Luke O'Connell, their captain, who again was dominant in midfield and scored a brilliant free kick. But we're used to that. But how about Reyes Cleary, who, of course, made headlines when he scored from his own half early on in the season. But this was 78 minutes of just absurd wing play. The best player on the pitch by a mile. Scorer of the first goal, where he was the one who won it, passed it to Keillor-Dunn, ran in behind with a brilliant deft finish into the back of the net. He created another couple of opportunities later on that weren't taken. He got 2 assists, one for the Keillor-Dunn goal and for Kelly, who made it 2-0 kind of midway through the first half. He also basically got the assist for the Kodua own goal, having gone down the left-hand side and crossed it in. And the ball was diverted into his own net by Kodua. We saw a half-time fullback substitution, which is always a sign of a very good wing performance, where Izzy Jones was taken off at half-time after Cleary had given him the runaround. Odoffin came on and made absolutely no difference whatsoever. I'm not entirely sure why Cleary was consistently in so much space and why Jack Wilshere and Luton weren't able to kind of shut down his threat, because every time the ball came to him, he seemed to have the space to run into. But this right-footed left winger is showing at the moment what he's capable of, and it was a brilliant display. And a shout out for Vimal Yoganathan as well, who didn't have any goal involvement, but playing as a 10, just in behind Keillor-Dunn, who led the line. Just another brilliant mercurial display by this wiry, thin Welsh youth international, who surely will be in the conversation to get a senior call up very soon, because the way that he impacts games, the way that his deft touches, his goal threat, his passing ability, his range, he just looks like a really attacking prospect. So, Barnsley have had issues this season with injuries. It's a young squad, as we know. I think Hourihane is learning on the job too, but this was a 10 out of 10 display and one fully deserving of a 5-0 win over Luton Town.
Yeah, love that. Back-to-back league wins for Barnsley after what felt like a bit of an extended spell of poor form. But then you look at the league table now, and shock horror, it's really, really condensed. And every week I can do the same sort of stat, and it's a tiny bit different each week. At the moment, it's between Cardiff City in first and Northampton Town in 17th. There's only 9 points separating those 17 teams. And it basically just means that all clubs have spent this start of the season more or less jostling for position. Pretty much every club has had, or at least the clubs towards the top have had good spells and poor spells, and Barnsley are one of them. But they've only played 14 games, which is the fewest in the league, joint with Stevenage. So PPG-wise, they're probably even healthier than their 9th place position. At their best, they've been one of the most exciting teams to watch, certainly early in the season. And hopefully this is kind of a return to that and a return to them loosening up at the top of the pitch. I know that it's basically a new group, really, because start of the season, I felt like I was talking a lot about Phillips and Vickers combining down the right, Keillor-Dunn and McGoldrick dovetailing sort of centrally and off the left. And now it's only Keillor-Dunn that started this game, with Cleary now having come to the fore, Yoganathan having come to the fore, and Kelly as well. So all those other guys, McGoldrick and Phillips and Vickers, they all came off the bench here. So now I'm kind of like, well, can we combine all of that into a team that isn't just good in flashes, but could be a bit more consistent? And of course, the jury's still out. But what a performance! What a result! Luton fans pretty terrified after this, I think it's fair to say. The nature of the goals that they conceded and how consistently they were sliced open, and the fact that was while playing a game with 70% of the ball and not creating anything particularly worthwhile of their own outside of one big chance. There has to be an understanding that if you're going to change the style of play from pretty direct / uber direct for quite a lot of seasons up to this point to the sorts of style where you're going to have 70% possession, I think it's going to take a little bit of time. But this is a team that suffered back-to-back relegations and is mid-table in League One where they don't expect to be. So I think there's a bit of awkwardness there around like the amount of patience that people will have. And obviously you need to actually see flickers of something to suggest that you want to see what the best case scenario is, what the high ceiling might be. And in this game, you're not seeing anything like that. So huge win for Barnsley. Big win as well on Thursday night for Peterborough, beating Stockport by 3-0. Now, I was at this game, and it was a bit of a strange one because it kind of felt like a fairly quiet affair. It felt like a game that there wasn't a ton of goalmouth action, but Peterborough kept Stockport at bay really, really well. And then every now and again just put together a nice attack and took their chances and won very, very comfortably. The first was a beautiful goal, was kind of, the Luke Williams utopia, in that it started with a very brave, risky pass from the goalkeeper, Bass, into Archie Collins, who was dropping deep with pressure on him. Collins flipped it out to O'Connor, the left centre-back, who stepped forward, fizzed a great pass into Jimmy J. Morgan, the number 10, who had dropped into the central midfield space created by Collins, dragging the Stockport midfielder forward. Jimmy J. Morgan flipped it out to the right wing, where Peter Kioso had motored on from fullback, completely unchallenged, unmarked. He carried it forward, and his ball across was knocked back into the path of Ben Woods, who was galloping forward from the centre of the park and found the corner with a beautiful finish. It was a beautiful team goal where the majority of outfield players touched it. The keeper played a key part in it as well. It's exactly what you want to see as a Posh fan, and very, very exciting. They were 2-0 up just before half-time. Lisby tapping in a rebound. Stockport were offering absolutely nothing. And there's some mitigating circumstances here in that they are missing some key players. The centre of the park, they had Moxon and Camps, where, ideally they would have Norwood and Bate. They had Corey O'Keefe, who's a right wing-back, playing left back, and they had Joe Olowu, who's a centre back, playing at right back, and those two struggled, I think it's fair to say, going forward in particular. But even so, like, very little link-up play between the front two, Wootton and Anderson. Diamond often provides a spark, as a 1v1 merchant off the wing. He was really, really poor. It was probably the worst Stockport performance that I can remember for a team that normally you can be fairly confident are going to put in a certain level of performance. And they need to respond, for sure. The third goal was scored by Brandon Keller, another really nice transition attack with Ben Woods involved. So, for Posh under Williams, they won 1-0 against Cardiff in the Cup. Then they won 3-0 at home to Wimbledon. Really exciting football played. 5-0 it was against Wimbledon. And now 3-0 against Stockport, who were top of the table. It's incredibly exciting, this, when a manager comes in and these are the immediate results, and a lot of the stuff that looked, desperate previously so far looks reclaimed, if you like. Williams has breathed new life into attacking players like Leonard, like Morgan, like Lindgren off the bench, Lisby being used more. You can tell from the way that they're playing that they're really enjoying it. And it's not just going forward, scoring nice goals, but defensively as well. And probably deep down, that's what I think is more important, because Peterborough have been so soft defensively for so long. And if they can be a team that really does suppress the opposition and start keeping some zeros and ones, they really should start to fly. And they're still in the bottom four, but what a start under Williams. Couldn't have gone any better, basically. And I'm excited to see what's next. They've got Stevenage at home on Tuesday night, so straight back into action, and a really good chance of going back to back at home in the league. George, Mansfield won, Huddersfield 3. So Lee Grant's Huddersfield went through a very sticky patch, but they beat Argyle 3-1 just before having a weekend off, and they were back in business here.
Yeah, this is 3 consecutive 3-1 victories for Huddersfield, including their EFL Trophy win, which normally I would be pretty keen to ignore, but that seems to be the performance and the result that has led to a bit of a shift from Lee Grant and an improved run of form. And that's why I think it's really important, because that was the game where Dion Charles' form really picked up, who continues to be in really good goal-scoring form, but also, and interestingly and kind of bizarrely, the first game that Marcus Harness played as a central midfielder. And that is where he's now playing. And if I could make a list of positions, I probably thought I'd see Marcus Harness play. Sitting in front of the defensive four probably wasn't up there, but he's looking very, very good in that position. And it seems to have coincided or caused a massive shift in their performance levels, because Huddersfield were a team I was very concerned about for a long period of time in our pod. Good month, bad month. I had them down for a bad month in October, and it was a really bad month. But the signs are good now, and credit to Huddersfield for sticking by Lee Grant, a young manager, and allowing him the time to kind of breathe and develop without seemingly there being too much pressure on him, despite some fans being frustrated by what they've seen in terms of performance levels. But they were sensational in the first half here against Mansfield. Away from home, they completely suffocated their opposition. They were incredibly high and direct. They scored 3 goals in the first 16 minutes of the game. The first coming from Bojan Radulovic, who's another player that's come into the side after a spell out and is looking very good with a header kind of on the line. Dion Charles with a nice finish shortly after that, before Sorensen's deflected effort went at the back of the net and basically ended the game. Huddersfield continued to be good throughout the first half. I'm sure Grant will be disappointed by what happened in the second half, where Will Evans scored with kind of 25 minutes or so to go, and the game was never really in doubt. But Huddersfield struggled to maintain the level of quality and dominance that they showed in the second half, in the first half. But the game is basically done. And having put in a really good display at home to Argyle, where they were dominant in that 3-win, having put a really good display in here, we know this is a Huddersfield squad that should be one of the best in the league, and for a long time they weren't that. But they're definitely now on my radar as being one of these teams that, for whatever reason, or maybe for the reasons already mentioned, have changed and are now going to be a force going forward. And, for Luton fans who play them on Tuesday night in what is a huge game for Jack Wilshere off the back of that 5-0 defeat against Barnsley, bad time to play them, I reckon. I fancy Huddersfield to get at least something out of that.
Northampton 1, Cardiff 3. Another 3-1 away win to tell you about. And a big one for Cardiff. Tough one to take, I reckon, for Cobblers, because it was a really nice low finish from Joel Colwill to put Cardiff ahead, as it's so often the case. Nice play down the right side for Cardiff. I think with Capaccio and whoever plays right wing, the combinations are so good that what I've noticed is they seem to basically drag an extra defender out to them to try and stop them from getting into dangerous areas. And what that often does is create space for a midfielder coming from deep. That was the case here. Colwill benefiting with a nice finish. Now, big brother Rubin picked up what sounds like quite a nasty ankle injury here. And Joel Colwill got a gash on his knee. So both of them came off injured. Northampton came on fairly strong in the second half. And Ethan Wheatley, who we've talked about a fair bit as a young striker on loan from Manchester United. Kevin Nolan's put an unbelievable amount of trust in him. And although his goal return isn't magnificent, I think we're starting to see why you might hang your hat on someone like this, because size, tick, speed, tick, and a decent strike on him by this evidence. He shrugged off Will Fish, made him look like a wet fish, and carried it forward and smashed it into the top corner. The problem was, having got level, Wheatley then scored just a really unfortunate own goal, a sort of low corner. He was at the front man and just tried to clear it and sliced it in, skidding past his keeper. There was a huge save from Nathan Trott, and I don't know how many times I've said that in this season. Elliot List, one-on-one, should have equalised, but Trott had other ideas, pushing it, pouring it really around the post. And then Chris Willock scores a beauty on the break, another assist from Capaccio, but a beautiful strike from range. And Cardiff go top, and they bounce back from back-to-back away defeats with this here, and it will feel great, and they should absolutely celebrate a hard-fought win, and not an easy game, showing character and resolve and finishing strongly. But ultimately, again, I am just concerned about them defensively, and I think they've had some fortune here, not least being pegged back to 1-1 and then basically being given a free goal from an own goal from what was actually a pretty poor corner in the first place. But also just, Cobblers are one of the worst attacking teams in the league, and they've had 15 shots inside the Cardiff box. Cardiff are now at the point, George, where they have faced the second most shots in League One this season. Blackpool number 1, Cardiff number 2. Who could have possibly seen that coming for two of the biggest budget sides in the league? I know Trott's really good. There's no doubt in that. An inspired piece of recruitment, but I don't think it can continue. I mean, they lost their 2 games previously to this, so you could say that it's, they have already hit a bit of a sticky spot, and this game could easily have gone the other way. And they have to work out how to be better defensively, because going forward, they're good. They score good goals, but they are not like a relentless attacking team by any means. They are not a standout best in the league by miles. They can be on their day, but they're not posting good enough attacking numbers to win every game 3-1, and that's the kind of style that they're going for at the moment. So it'll be really interesting next couple of months, I think, for Cardiff. One team that I think are pretty legit are Wycombe Wanderers. They beat Lincoln 3-2. This was 2 good teams going blow for blow, I think, and another one that definitely could have gone either way. 2-0 Wycombe when Sam Bell scored a brace in the first half. Really nice first time finish from a cross from the left, and then 1-on-1 lifted it over the keeper. Sam Bell, since he broke through at Bristol City, I think we've kind of known that Bell is a very, very impressive goal scorer, a really impressive finisher, someone who picks up good spots to take shots, has an innate ability to know where to be, and good finishing ability. And he showed that in a Bristol Rovers shirt, but unfortunately, I think maybe lacks the physicality because he doesn't really play as a number 9. He's a bit short. They're basically playing him off the left as kind of like a left-sided poacher. And tactically, that's not a role that every manager will have time or kind of space for in their team. But Mike Duff's benefiting from it massively. And Bell now has the 3rd most non-penalty goals per 90, or the 3rd highest, I should say, in League One. So as long as he's scoring 1 in 4 shots and getting in good locations, add that to Onyia Dinma's goal threat, and Wycombe are getting a lot from their wide forwards. Good movement, good finishing, great to see. But Lincoln came flying back in the second half. A Bick finished from a set piece, then Draper equalised and did the Robbie Keane, and then a Bick had a huge chance, ball across, flashed across, he dived onto it, was maybe just a millisecond too late and couldn't divert it into the empty net. It went wide, and 2 minutes later, from a set piece, right at the back post, Jack Grimmer mops up as the ball goes all the way through. And for Grimmer, having scored an own goal against Exeter in a 1-0 defeat at the same end of the ground, he's now back level for the season, and a big moment for the Adams Park faithful. They're watching a serious team at the moment. 3 home wins in a row, 5 in their last 6. And a team who had 2 points after 6 league games are now into the top 10. They have played more games than anyone else, so a bit lower in terms of PPG, and it's all very sort of grouped up right now. But basically, Wycombe should be considered one of the top teams in the league, I think, right now under Mike Duff. And there's still a long way to go this season. So, yeah, a lot more space for them to move into above them in the table if they continue like this. Now, George, at Plough Lane on Saturday was a star born, because Wimbledon lost 2-1 to Wigan Athletic. And I think the star man, the star boy, this might be one of my favourite things that's ever happened. Tell me about it.
Yeah, we kind of chatted before the pods and agreed that this might be maybe the best story since we started the podcast just under 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
AFC Wimbledon are 1-0 up in the driving rain at the Cherry Red Record Stadium after Alistair Smith had put them ahead. After both sides had chances, we're going to miss a couple of opportunities in the first half. Fraser Murray in particular missing quite an easy opportunity. And looking down the barrel of the defeat, Ryan Lowe turns to an academy graduate, a youth player called Harrison Bertoni, to make his Wigan Athletic debut. Now, as per the Wigan Athletic official site, he's been at the football club since the age of 12, progressing from the under-13s to the first team. He's a proper Wigan lad who, in his own words, was living the dream on this Saturday afternoon, because when he comes on, Wigan have a free kick. Now, Harrison Bertoni has said afterwards that he's taken free kicks throughout his career, which is a lovely turn of phrase given his career, I think, basically started on this Saturday. But throughout his youth career, clearly a free kick taker. And Ryan Lowe had said to him, sent him on and said, pick your corner and hit it where you need to hit it. His first kick in professional football, his first kick making his debut for his boyhood club in front of the away end at AFC Wimbledon. Left-footed, Bertoni hits it in the top left-hand corner and celebrates in the fans. What must be, he thinks then, it cannot get better than this. Like, I've come off the bench, my first kick in professional football, I've scored a free kick, 18 years old, for my boyhood club, and I've made it 1-1. Well, Harrison, it can get better. It can get better. Because the ball is then played into Paul Mullin. Mullin hits a really good little kind of flick over the top through into the path of Bertoni, who runs onto the ball and fires a shot that the Wimbledon keeper tries to save, gets something onto it, and it goes into the back of the net. And the scenes afterwards, it almost reminded me a little bit of Ollie Watkins' reaction when he scored against the Netherlands in the Euros last year, where there's an amazing camera that's basically in or kind of in that away end, and you see Bertoni celebrate again with the fans, and you just see his face. He cannot believe what was happening, and you can see like he's just scored a brace. He's come off the bench in the 77th minute with his team 1-0 down with Wigan Athletic, the team that he, I assume, has supported or at least has represented since he was a kid, still is a kid, and he scored a brace to win the 3 points. And regardless of what happens now, etch his name into folklore at the club. Like just an unbelievable story. What a moment for him. Living the dream gets spoken about a lot, but for any of us who support an EFL club, I think coming off the bench as a teenager and scoring twice in front of your own fans and celebrating with your fans, I'm glad the referee didn't book him. I mean, he could have been sent off for both celebrations, really. Just an incredible moment and an incredible story, and I cannot wait to see what comes next for this clearly very talented young player.
Absolute scenes. And in doing that, he became the youngest sub to hit a League One brace since Harry Kane in 2011. So maybe Harrison Bertoni is the new heir to England's greatest ever goal scorer. I sure hope so.
We need it.
More gold coming out of the Wigan Academy. We've mentioned the other day how Hull have Joe Gelhardt, Charlie Hughes and Carl Joseph, all brilliant. Obviously Tello Asgard now playing for Rangers and for Norway. James Carragher playing for Wigan, Jensen Weir as well back at Wigan, Sam Tickle at Wigan, and others as well. Alfie Devine obviously playing well for Preston on loan from Spurs. So yeah, looks like another one. And what an incredible situation and performance from Harrison Bertoni. Port Vale 0, Plymouth Argyle 1. George, no getting away from this. Massive for both teams, and Argyle take it.
Yeah, Port Vale now rooted to the bottom of League One, and I'm quite surprised that we're not talking about a managerial change here, because as much as you and I have spoken about our belief that at times Vale have been unlucky this season, the fans at Vale Park made their feelings very, very much known, and I can't imagine that Darren Moore is going to get much time to turn this around now. And this was an opportunity for them against one of the poorer teams in the league to get an all-important 3 points. The first half was probably the cagiest game of football that anyone's ever played in the history of the world. There were 4 shots in the first half. One of them was from like 35 yards and was blocked. Another one of them was from 40 yards and was high and wide. Like, it was basically nothing happened. But in the second half, it started very differently, with Laurent Talai finishing well from close range to put Argyle 1-0 up. And then it was proper back to the wall from then on, with Vale dominating possession, creating most of the best opportunities from then on, but unable to take any of the chances that came their way. But they probably didn't really create enough either. Like, at home, 1-0 down against the team bottom of the league. It feels to me like if Port Vale were playing as they had done a couple of weeks ago, they probably would have been able to do better. And often, poor runs of form, even when the numbers are bad, can trigger a bit of a crisis of confidence, or can trigger, managers trying to change stuff when they don't necessarily need changing. And right now it feels like Vale's performance level is dipping towards the kind of results trend. And, a huge win this for Argyle. Like, we have to say that it was not necessarily the style of football that they wanted to play under Cleverley. It wasn't necessarily a performance to get fans particularly excited about, but it was a gutsy performance. It was a clean sheet on the road. It was finding a way to win. It was all those things that fans love, and gets them off the bottom spot in League One, which is important because they need to now get out of the bottom 4. But big day for Argyle. Trouble for Vale.
I'm bitter to see the player that they sold to Argyle at the end of the window, who has the second most EFL goals in 2025 behind Michael Cheek, Laurent Talai, scoring the winner when their own team have failed to score in 5 straight games. Their joint longest goalless league run ever. That stat from NTT20.com's excellent weekend notes, which gets sent into your inbox. All subscribers, free subscribers as well, every Monday morning. Now for some draws. Reading 1, Rotherham 1. Saw one of the sexiest goals I've seen this season from Charlie Savage. Ball headed out.
Ridiculous strike.
A bouncing ball was hit on the bounce by Charlie Savage's so-called weaker right foot. And it's one of those where, because of the trajectory of the bouncing ball beforehand, like even just keeping it down is a skill in itself. If you try and put your foot through this and absolutely leather it, it's going top tier of the Madstad. But of course, you're 25 yards out, so you need to get a decent enough connection on it that there's power behind the shot. And Savage manages to get it absolutely spot on with what is one of the most difficult techniques I can imagine, and his weaker foot. And it just zips into the top corner. Oh my God, it's good from Charlie Savage. But that was the equaliser. Rotherham had gone ahead and scored a nice goal, really nice move down the right-hand side, then shifted it across. It was finished by Benson. Rotherham will never lose again, I don't think. Their 8 games unbeaten is the current longest unbeaten run in the entire EFL, can you believe? Good in flashes going forward, Rotherham, but still not a consistent goal threat. That's pretty easily reflected in their shot numbers over the last 6 games or so. But they're balancing it pretty well. The games where they're not brilliant going forward, they've been pretty solid defensively. And yeah, they're in good form. I think they're a bit fortunate that Big Kelvin had misplaced his shooting boots, if he owns any. And increasingly, I'm wondering that. For Reading, he missed 2 big chances. George, Orient, Blackpool, drama at the end, and Blackpool nicking a point.
Yeah, last time we spoke about an Orient home game, we spoke about the referee and said that luckily for Orient fans, the decisions they were frustrated by didn't matter. It wasn't the case this time around, where I think the Orient fans will be frustrated about what they saw. From the officials, they took the lead with a really nice finish from Aaron Connolly, cutting off that left-hand side where he's now playing and bending the ball into the bottom right-hand corner. Just a ridiculous sending off from Teo Adaramola, who both yellow cards basically came from him losing the ball and then trying to make up for it. The first was a very blatant shirt pull, no complaints there. The second, it's really, really harsh to me. It's not a case of him tugging someone back. It's a case of him fouling somebody after losing the ball. But there's no... I think you can make a strong case for it being an attempt to play the ball. I don't think it's not a shirt tug. He seemed pretty surprised to see the second yellow, and I can definitely understand Orient's frustration at that. And from 1-0 up, and with 10 men, it is then a very, very different game. And Blackpool dominated the ball after that. And Orient had chances on the break themselves. Charlie Wellens missed one really good opportunity at 1-0 to make the game safe. But then the goal came, and it was bundled in by Ashley Fletcher. But Orient defenders feel like Fletcher committed a foul in the build up to that too. So, for Blackpool, it's a decent point on the road. It's getting the late goal will obviously give them a boost. But I think Richie Wellens and Orient fans will feel like the game, the win at least was given up by officiating rather than themselves. Both frustration with the red card and the decision not to disallow the goal.
2-0 nils, Bolton 0, Bradford 0 was a match that happened. Bolton with quite a lot of huffing and puffing, particularly your man Mario Kozia-Jubri, whose radar was a little off, Burstow as well. Bradford themselves, they haven't won in 6 now. 5 draws, only the 1 defeat. Still second in the table. Just have lost some of that sweet momentum and dynamism from early this season, but still doing all right. And Stevenage 0, Doncaster 0. Stevenage still playing poorly, you have to say. Only 5 shots at home, not ideal. And Doncaster seemingly still paying for something they did in a former life, missing gilt-edged chances in a game they're probably the better side once again. Harry Clifton among others. That's 10 without a win now for Donny.